So I'm just looking around my fellow facilitators. I'm looking for signs of readiness. It's 11:40. So we've just approached the witching hour. Can I have a quick thumbs up from everyone and say that we're ready to rock and roll? Fantastic. I think we've got a few more people arriving into the session. But as people come, we will make a start. So definitely if we can start with the first slide. Straight away, everybody, I want to say bore da a croeso to the session. Hello and welcome. It's tremendous that we're all here today at the National Youth Work Conference. It feels a bit strange being online, I have to say, but it's something we've all been getting used to in recent times, and it's especially encouraging to see people here in this particular workshop. We have a very good selection of workshops today at the conference. We will be talking a little bit about the content and the context of the workshop over the course of the first few slides. There is a presentation which informs the discussions today, and discussions is the key word. This is not a how-to workshop. This is not, well, you want to open up a Welsh medium provision, this is what you do, A, B, C. This is more of a recognition of the good practice that is out there, and the practice across Wales in different shapes and forms to do with Welsh medium youth work and bilingual youth work in different shapes and forms by different organisations. And really the purpose of this workshop is to get some discussion going, which will share the knowledge, which will encourage people to share practice more specifically, and to explore some of the challenges and opportunities attached to the delivery of Welsh medium youth work and Welsh medium youth engagement more generally. So without further ado, we're going to introduce the panel to you today. My name is Paul O'Neill. I work with Cyfrwng Youth Service. So on my screen, over to Non.
Good morning, everybody. I am Non Davies. I'm Corporate Manager with Ceredigion County Council, and as part of my role, I am responsible for Mae'r, which is the Welsh Language Initiative in Ceredigion, and within Mae'r, we have officers who work very closely with the youth service in Ceredigion County Council.
Diolch Non, and Gethin.
Good morning. My name is Gethin Jones. I am Corporate Manager for the Support and Prevention Service in Ceredigion County Council. So I am responsible for youth services within the county, and also I'm responsible for the children and young people engagement service and wider services, the prevention community service as well. So thank you for the opportunity today. It's good to be here. Good morning, I'm Angharad Wyn and I work for Gwaith Cymru as South Wales Community Manager. And as part of my work, I work very closely with local authorities and with youth services within the local authorities with regards to youth work in areas across South Wales. Thank you. I'm Laurie Jones. I'm the Chief Officer of Eraill Cyffredin, Principal Officer, and I also chair the network of Welsh language initiatives in Wales. With regards to my work with Cyffredin Eraill, we've been collaborating closely with the Mae'r and with Cyffredin Youth Service for about 20 years by now, planning strategically Welsh medium provision for the county.
So shortly we will be having the opportunity to introduce ourselves. That's everyone who's a participant in the workshop here. Can we have the next slide, please?
We've had a comment in the chat about the translation, so I don't know if you want to just go over that now before we go any further.
Yes, thanks, Angharad. Hello, I think it's V. we asked the question that yes, the translation is available. If you go to the Sessions tab on the left and right click, and that you should be able to open a new tab. Catherine, who is our translator for Welsh to English. Catherine, could you put any other advice in on the chat, please, for V or anyone else struggling with the translation? Thank you. And we also have Steve Davis, who's in the lobby. Do we have anyone who can help Steve out to get him in the session? Okay, what we will do is we will try and get hold of our technical help to give some advice to Steve in the meantime. So if someone could pop something in the chat to that effect, I'd be very grateful. And thank you, Catherine, for the guidance there on translation. That's very, very useful. So V, we hope you find that successful. Okay, so we are just giving a bit more context to the session here. And I think, first of all, we've got a recognition here of what's going on in Wales already. And in fact, Welsh language, Welsh medium engagement in a youth context is already a standard offer in many youth work and youth settings across Wales. But generally, at the moment, that tends to be where Welsh, where it's happening in an area where Welsh is the main language. So what this workshop is not saying is that there is no Welsh medium youth work in Wales. So in places where Welsh language is strong and prevalent, there is a Welsh medium youth work offer currently. On the other side of the coin, where English is the main language, Welsh medium youth work is also available. So again, what this workshop is not saying is that in predominantly in English-speaking areas, that there is no Welsh language youth work engagement or youth engagement more generally. That would be entirely inaccurate to say. There are many, many good examples of this type of work going on, both specifically Welsh and in a bilingual format. And in fact, in some areas, perhaps the larger areas with heavy population like Cardiff, the Welsh language offer is not just that, but it's actually multilingual, because in places like Cardiff we have more than 2 languages present. It's also entirely the case, we think, and this is a very good question for the whole room, is that there may well be other Welsh medium youth work and youth provision out there that we don't know about. But at the moment, voluntary sector youth work does not have any formal form of audit. And so those examples of Welsh medium youth work or bilingual youth work are just not visible. So this is something that we're already proposing perhaps could be changed so that the net could be cast a little wider, so that we can find out exactly who is out there, regardless of sector, that is offering Welsh medium youth work or bilingual youth work. In non-youth work settings, that is youth work settings that are not youth work with a capital Y and a capital W, there certainly is a lot of Welsh language offer, but at the moment we're struggling to look at the offer in terms of how it's communicated. So the advertising and the prominence of these opportunities probably needs greater marketing, and that's already a discussion that's ongoing with this particular pilot group. So thank you. And the next slide, please. Thank you very much. And the first thing I'll say, I mean, I'm hoping that already participants can see the direction of travel of this particular workshop, that we're setting the scene, and we want to be able to have a melting pot of ideas and sharing the knowledge. So what I would say is very important, and in fact, the success of the workshop hinges on people's participation. And we have a method for doing that, and shortly, Gethin is going to tell us how we can do it. But of course, the chat option is available as well, and we will be responding to questions in the chat as they arise. Thank you.
Diolch, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, so
before I give you an overview of this morning's workshop, I just wanted to go through some of these brief points on how the session will flow. So I've got some housekeeping and also how you can participate in the session, hopefully. So just to remind you, there is a translation provision available, and we would also encourage you to take part in Welsh or in English. There'll be opportunities for you to take part by pressing the blue button to join the session, and also please use the chat facilities that we will be letting you know how to do this in a moment. If you do want to ask, if you do want to ask a question, or if you want to share verbal comments, as Paul mentioned, please just press the blue button on the right side of your screen. So we intend for this session to be interactive and participative, and the main aims are to assess the current situation in Wales at the moment. And there'll be an opportunity for you to share some of the challenges that you find, or some of the challenges that you've seen in the area. And also we'll be looking at examples of good practice and how we can collaborate to solve some of these challenges. And hopefully we'll be able to finish the session by agreeing on next steps. First of all then, as we go through the next few slides, I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself, your organisation, or some of the reasons that you represent, and a little bit about why you've decided to join this workshop this morning. So please use this opportunity to engage with each other and to offer any comments that you may have. We will be monitoring the chat facility as we go forward, and we'll be trying to discuss some of the themes that will arise. So if a theme will come out of the chat facility, we can stop the session, or we can raise some of the main points out of the chat. So the next slide. Okay, so back to Paul.
Thank you, Gethin. So Gethin, at this point, are we going to introduce people or allow them to introduce themselves?
Yeah, if they can do that via the chat, Paul, that would be great. Hopefully the translation worked there in terms of how I try to explain. So if you can introduce yourself via the chat. If I just go back to the previous slide quickly.
Thanks. So there we are, everybody. The chat function is there. We want to know who you are. Well, we know who you are because your name is on the chat, but which group or organisation you're with, and the brief reasons why you're here in the workshop. And this will be important for us to see, because this will provide the context for our discussion, and we can leave us some information and it will be relevant in the context of your own type of work.
Anne's noting she's having some problems on the chat with multiple voices, so I don't know if that's disrupting it for her. Diolch, Andrew.
So thank you, Andrew, from Gwaith Youth Service. In your service, I'm guessing that youth work, Welsh medium youth work, is available as standard. Thank you for being here today. I look forward to your further input. And V has put some very interesting and very topical information into her chat as well. V is with the Vale Youth Service in South Wales. And yes, the Vale is a predominantly sort of English context in terms of the language used there. And she's raised the challenge there that there is a struggle to recruit Welsh-speaking youth workers at the moment. And we think that may be a common thread throughout our workshop discussion today. So if anyone else is also having similar challenges, that it may be worth putting that in the chat too. Thank you, V. And we've got Emma from the North Wales Fire and Rescue. Lovely to see you. And Emma, I'm not sure what would be the reasons for your being there. That would be useful to know people's motivation for coming into this particular workshop, because that could then form a set of bullet points for us that we could address hopefully by the end. So Emma and everyone, if you can give us your reasons for that. If you don't have a specific reason, that's fine. But if there's something in particular that has your curiosity, then we'd like to know about it, please. And Emma, thank you, Emma. You've also said that you've echoed the sentiments expressed by V there in terms of youth work recruitment. I noticed you're a youth work student. I would certainly be keen to know how many Welsh speakers are actually on your youth work training program right now, because one of the challenges we may have is in recruitment to youth work training as well. So any feedback you may have about that would be very useful. And Mae'r, thank you very much. Welcome. You're also working at Aberystwyth University, and you're looking for inspiration for the roles, Welsh and English, highlighting the importance of Welsh medium youth work to students and fellow Bydd members. So thank you very much for being here. Yeah, we'd echo that. The current discussion, the current narrative in youth work circles is about how we can highlight and develop the Welsh medium offer. And Emma there is very keen to be a Welsh speaker, so fantastic, Emma. That's great stuff. And you're not fluent, and this is another interesting question that will come up when the question is asked of practitioners. Now, do you speak Welsh? We're often being told now, well, no. And actually, what the truth is more like, well, I'm not fluent. I'm not really that confident at speaking Welsh, but actually, I do speak some Welsh. So that's a very interesting point. So, so thank you, Emma. That you've prompted a very interesting question there. Hello to Lee. I'll have to ask my colleagues to translate Lee's chat for me, please. Have Anne Smith. Welcome, Anne. Good to see you, or if you know what I mean. So yes, with the QM, the quality mark inspector. Those who are not familiar with the initials QM, that's a reference to the youth work quality mark. So if there are any organisations here who are thinking of acquiring it, please make inquiries after the conference, and you'll be taken through the process. And we have Louise, colleague of mine, and Louise. Good to see you, Louise. And again, an example of current youth work practice in a predominantly English-speaking area. I've got some questions here. The Lemonade project. We want to know more about that, please. Okay. So I think that's taken us through. I'm just going to go and check everyone in the people. That's all of our people there who have contributed. Thank you very much to that. If you haven't managed to put anything in the chat just yet, please do as we go along. The quality of discussion really depends on that input. So at that point, could we have the next slide, please?
Just checking, Paul, can you see the context slide? I might be having difficulties with my screen.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yes, I do have that now. So just going to roll through a bit of that context for everyone. So that's fantastic. We're still setting the scene, and we're about to get into what we hope will be a bit more of an interactive session. We have some polls for people to vote in, so we're hoping that's going to produce some interesting results. So here we go. For those who may not know, obviously we have an interim youth work board at the moment. It's been busy working the past couple of years on constructing a report. That report has just been published. So if anyone here is not available that hasn't seen that, please go to the Welsh Government website and download the report. It makes excellent reading, it's very encouraging, and a lot of recommendations attached to that report. And so that's going to keep us all busy for for the next year or two, I would expect. But as part of that process, a number of groups have formed to discuss various aspects of youth work. These groups are called SPGs, Strategic Participation Groups. And we have one for the Welsh language and youth work as well. And they have been driving forward a number of questions about the provision of Welsh medium youth work in Wales. And this workshop really is helping to move that discussion forward. But the work of the SPG, we hope, will go on beyond the current shelf life of the interim youth work board, because it is interim, due to come to an end this year, but we hope that that will continue in some format. There is some Welsh language pilot work underway at the moment in Wales. As a result of the Welsh SPG, Welsh Government made some funding available that could be bid into by different youth work organisations to run Welsh language youth work pilots between earlier on this year and next March. And the reason for the facilitators you see in front of you being here today is that we are a part of that pilot work. And that pilot work is happening both in Caerphilly, which is predominantly an English-speaking area, and Ceredigion, where Welsh is far more prominent. And what our hope is that at the end of the pilot, those two experiences will marry together, and the results of the work that we are undertaking will be combined into a report that may contribute to recommendations being put forward by the successor to the Interim Youth Work Board in terms of Welsh medium youth work. We will chip in with some of the content of the pilot work later on in the workshop. I will say it does involve surveying what's already there, if you like, conducting audits of work that's available currently, and recruiting young people to be towards opening provision. And as you may have seen in the chat earlier on, Louise from Caerphilly was saying that we are going to be opening a Welsh medium youth work provision in the heart of Caerphilly in the coming months, and that will be a part of this pilot, for example. But we will also see a bit of work from Ceredigion later on. We don't just want to run a pilot. We actually want to get to the position where some tangible actions can come from all this work. We hope the pilots will carry on. They won't just be pilots, they'll carry on to something that's much more sustainable. But we hope that across Wales, this will provide a prompt for a growth in Welsh medium youth work and its advertising and marketing. So the work will not start and finish in this financial year. We hope it will continue further than that. What we also want to do, not just in this workshop, but as a continuing conversation, is to explore some of the facts and myths around the provision of Welsh medium youth work, or Welsh medium youth engagement work more generally. There are different perceptions about the challenges and opportunities that Welsh medium youth work provides. We want to be able to explore that a little bit today. And again, we'd like people to share their views on those things and compare that with some of the actual good practice that's going on currently. Hopefully, this will all result in actual recommendations that will contribute towards the recommendations already contained in the Youth Work Board's report published on the Welsh Government website. But it's over to us, really. If we want to see change, if we want to see this area of work expand and develop and improve, then it is really up to the practitioners on the ground to make it happen. So I'm just going to take a quick look at the chat here. Thank you very much for that. Okay, now over to the next slide.
Diolch, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, so as Gethin and Paul mentioned at the beginning, today is an opportunity for all of us, really, to start thinking about Welsh medium local youth work provision, and it's an opportunity to start considering what we know about provision in our area, and also in considering increasing the provision, that we also start to ask questions about how many young people can speak Welsh Welsh in our area, what organisations are available who can help to work in partnership with us as well. So before we move forward, I'd like to take this opportunity now for you to start considering a few questions that will then form a basis for us to move forward and for us to start thinking about what is possible locally and what are the action points following today. So you should be able to click on the right-hand side on the poll option, and then you will see 3 questions there, and that's an opportunity for us to start thinking about your provision and your local area or the work that you're involved with at the moment. And the first question that you should see in the poll is, have you ever provided Welsh medium services for young people? Okay, so if you go to the polls and if you click then on the choices, and in a couple of seconds, we should be able to see the results. Okay, so this is just an opportunity for us to start thinking about the situation and what do we need to consider after today. At the moment, the result is quite high with regards to people who have been providing Welsh medium services for young people. It's 90% of people who have said yes, that they have done so. Great, okay, so we have a firm basis here, certainly. In thinking about that, with the second question, we have the question which is how many Welsh language youth organisations are in your area? Okay, so it's just an opportunity for you to think if you know what organisations are out there, how many of those organisations, or maybe you're not sure, and maybe it's an opportunity after today for you to go and look for some of those organisations and ask them for opportunities to collaborate. So if you can answer the second question, please. These are a bit more mixed, but the majority, 45% at the moment, have said, oh, it's gone up to 50%.
Yeah.
Okay, so one point to note here, and it is relevant to the final question as well, is quite recently, Mae'r, the Welsh language initiatives across Wales, have updated their Welsh language profiles. So it would be a good idea to contact your local Mae'r and ask perhaps to look at their Welsh language profiles, because that profile gives quite detailed information about what organisations are active in your area in different fields. So certainly it's worth discussing that Welsh language profile with your local Mae'r to see whether there are other organisations in the area who are working with young people and what are the opportunities for collaboration. Okay, and therefore, if we can now move to the final question, which asks you whether you know how many young people speak Welsh in your area. And there's an option to say yes, no, or perhaps you're unsure of the percentages or the numbers that you have. Okay, so if you could please answer that third question. 41% have responded saying that they're unsure. So yeah, there's quite a lot who aren't sure of the numbers of Welsh speakers in their area. Okay, thank you, Angharad. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? And again, I'd recommend that you look at the Welsh language profile with your local Mae'r, and also it's possible that you're involved with work with the education plan or the most recent WESPs. So a lot of data is collated there, but there's quite a lot of information between the Welsh language profile with your Mae'r and the Welsh in Education scheme, which tells you how many young people speak Welsh in your areas and also where they are and within which communities, which is very useful in planning for these services. So thank you for your input to those questions, and it's just an opportunity, as I said, for you to start thinking about your local situation. What do you know about the young people in your area in order to start considering working in partnership with other organisations or planning services, youth services in a bit of a different way or in different areas as well. So we are now starting to think already about some of the challenges that face us, and some of you have noted that in the chat already with regards to recruitment, recruiting staff who can speak Welsh in order to develop more Welsh medium services for young people. So again, we'd like to focus for a couple of minutes now on those main challenges. And if I can ask you again, please, to note in the chat, what are the main challenges for Welsh language activities in your area? Or services, support services through the medium of Welsh for young people. So if you could please note those challenges in the chat, we will keep an eye on the chat to see what themes are arising. And also, if some of you are very keen to elaborate on that point, on those challenges that you're facing, if you want to give us a bit more context, you're welcome to choose the option to talk with us as well. But at the first instance, if you could please note in the chat, what are the main challenges for Welsh language activities and services in your area, and then we can unpick some of the themes. And as Paul has noted in the chat, he says that 93% of people who are here have provided Welsh medium service. He's asking, were they all successful or were there any challenges involved with that? Great, thank you. And I can see that Andrew at the moment perhaps feels that there aren't that many challenges. There aren't challenges because everybody who's employed by Gwynedd Council have a high level of Welsh language skills. So Gwynedd certainly is in quite an exceptional situation, but I'm sure that we all have things to learn from those experiences in Gwynedd. But certainly you are in a very fortunate position in recruiting staff, and that is one of the main challenges that people tend to find. V has mentioned, obviously, they don't have staff who can speak Welsh within their team. So the Mae'r are providing a service for them, which can show the value in partnership working with organisations. Somebody else then can provide Welsh medium service for young people and children. Okay, thank you, V. And perhaps Emma then coming from the similar direction, talking about the lack of Welsh speakers who are confident in speaking Welsh to become leaders of activities. And I'm just looking back at the chat, and from the Cyngor area, I think, yeah, you were referring to the Rhondda Cynon area. Anne asks, what does Welsh medium youth work actually mean? Does it mean making Welsh gigs or fully immersed in language? And what we're looking at here is immersion, so that there's Welsh medium provision for children who are either first language or second language Welsh, and that provision is available across Wales, and how we can provide that, and how can we look at the possibility of providing that in communities where there is no provision at the moment or where they need to develop that provision for them. Thank you, Angharad, and V also echoing Emma's perspective with regards to provision in Glamorgan, where there is staff who aren't that confident. So this is a theme, I think, that will raise its head quite often, where we've got staff who've been through Welsh medium education, who haven't used their Welsh after leaving school, and by the time for them to be in a job or following a career, that confidence is quite low in their Welsh speaking skills. So I know in Caerphilly at the moment, we're discussing this issue specifically, and we are discussing what sort of support that we could be developing in order to raise those confidence levels and make sure that they can use their Welsh within their work as youth workers. And Emma saying something similar with regards to a personal experience in feeling confident enough to be running sessions for young people through the medium of Welsh. And then Mae'r notes a comment here about Welsh learners, their confidence in using the Welsh language being low. You know, in activities they have a lack of confidence in their Welsh speaking skills as Welsh learners, which is a shame.
Diolch, Mae'r.
Thank you, Mae'r. Okay, so I think that certainly we've got a consistent theme here with regards to staff recruitment and staff confidence in their Welsh skills. But if we could think about a second question here, where there's an opportunity to think about where you have faced challenges, how you've overcome those challenges. Some of you have already talked about partnership working, but if you have any other examples of how you have overcome challenges by working in partnership or by developing a different approach, it would be really interesting for us to hear those experiences this morning, for us to all consider how we could be overcoming our challenges locally. So if there are any further comments in things that have been successful, how you have overcome challenges, despite of the challenges that you face, that would be really useful. So if you could place those now in the chat, please. There's a reference here to social media by V, that they make sure that social media goes out bilingually. And also a good example by Emma, saying that paid training for any council staff to learn Welsh online. That's a really good example, I think, you know, to raise people's confidence. Yes, and V echoing those comments, you know, that factor of allowing, supporting training in their working hours, you know, supporting them along that journey to become confident in using their Welsh. Any other points by anybody? I know that I have referred towards the partnership working earlier with the Urdd, and that's a fantastic example, isn't it, of collaboration in order to make sure that the provision is available. And again, referring to opportunities to support workers to improve their Welsh language skills or to start learning Welsh. And there's reference there to a programme through the Gwrtheyrn Centre, where there are very intensive courses for staff that are very successful. Okay, I think that we have finished with the comments with regards to the challenges and how some of you have overcome them. There's something else here from Mae'r. And Mae'r mentions a scheme called Everyday Welsh, which was a plan or a scheme by the Urdd that was really successful. And it was an opportunity for learners to join in on their youth board. And that gave them an experience and an opportunity to use their Welsh skills. Gareth is raising a good point here on the National Centre for Learning Welsh, working with the sector, saying that they could potentially work with the sector to provide specific youth work courses for Welsh language courses then for youth workers. That could be a very good idea. That could help local authorities to provide more services through the medium of Welsh or to develop that work further. So yes, that could be a good option, having the National Centre for Learning Welsh to work or to provide a specific youth work course. Yeah, and to make sure that the courses are specific and relevant to the work that youth workers deal with on a day-to-day basis. So that is a really good opportunity to develop that. Okay, I think that the comments are starting to slow down.
sawl pwynt da fan
And
enwedig o ran
some really good points
staff
there, especially
o
with regards
safbwynt
to
hyder
supporting
a gwell
staff in their
sgiliau,
confidence and
a
improving
hefyd
their
wedyn
skills.
enghraifft o weithio mewn partneriaeth
And, you know,
gyda
working in partnership as well with
gyda
the
mudiadur
IRF
sy'n
and
medru
with other
darparu
organisations
Gymraeg
who
mwyn
are
sicrhau
able to
bydd y
provide through the
darpariaeth
medium of Welsh to
ar
make
gael
sure
yn
that provision is
lleol. Felly,
available
diolch yn
locally.
fawr am eich
So
cyfraniadau.
thank you
Mae hwn
for
yn
your
gyfle i ni gyd i
contributions.
ddechrau
Now this is an
ystyried
opportunity
beth
for us
sydd
to
yn
start
bosib
thinking about what
a
is
pa fath
possible
opsiynau sydd
and
gyda
what
ni
sort of
goresgyn
options
yr
we
heriau
have
yna
in order
wedyn.
to overcome the challenges.
Felly, os ewn ni ymlaen i'r
So
sleid
if we can now
nesaf,
move on to the next
ni'n
slide,
trafod,
please, so that we can
enghreifftiau o arfer
discuss
da
some
wedyn hefyd.
examples of good practice.
Diolch Lowri.
Thank you, Lowri.
Felly mae'r sleid
Yeah,
yma
so this slide
yn canolbwyntio ar feisydd
focuses
arferion da
on
sy'n
areas of
cyffredinol
good
ac yn
practice in
berthnasol
general
i
and
lawer
that are
o
relevant to
ardaloedd
many
ar draws
areas
Cymru.
across Wales.
Byddwn yn cymryd tro fan hyn, fi'n credu,
We'll be
roi
taking
enghreifftiau o'n meysydd a
a
gwasanaethau
turn here in turn to
ni
show
yn
examples of our
penodol.
services
Ond eto,
specifically
bydd tipyn o
and
pethau
our
yn
areas, but I
plethu fel
think that
oedd
there
Lowri'n
will
sôn
be
yn
some
plethu
themes that will
sylwarau sydd wedi
interlink
dod trwy'r
with
chat.
some of the
Felly,
comments that have come through on the chat.
gyda'r pwynt cyntaf,
So with the
fi'n credu
first point, I think
oedd hwnna'n thema
that
cryf
was
oedd yn
a
dod
strong
drwyddo
theme
rili o
that
ran
came through in the chat,
cefnogi staff a
supporting staff
roi'r cymorth na
and
mewn
giving
i
the
datblygu
support
yr elfen
in to
hyder
develop
i
this element of
staff fod yn
confidence,
hyderus
for
ac
staff to
yn
become
cyfforddus
confident and to be
i
comfortable
darparu
in
cyfleoedd trwy
providing
gyfrwng y
opportunities
Cymraeg
through the
ar
medium
unrhyw
of
lefel.
Welsh on any
O ran
level.
profiad a
With
enghreifftiau
regards
yng
to
Ngheredigion,
examples
mae
and experience in
cydnabau
Ceredigion,
corfforaethol
we've got corporate
ar gael ar pob lefel,
contracts
rili, a
available
lleogi
on all
staff i
levels
fynychu
to enable
hyfforddiant,
staff to
i
go on
ddysgu
training,
neu i
to
datblygu
learn or to
sgiliau
develop
Cymraeg,
their Welsh
ac
language
mae hyn yn
skills.
hanfodol
And
wrth
this is
ddatblygu
essential as we
gweithlu a
develop a
darpariaeth
workforce
cadarn.
and a
Felly
solid provision.
unrhyw un
So
sy'n
anybody
ymuno gyda
who
Cyngor yn
joins
Ceredigion,
the
maen nhw'n
council
cael
in
y cyfle
Ceredigion,
yna
they are
o
given
fewn eu
that opportunity
cytundebau
within their agreements and their
i
contracts
just cael yr cyfle
for them to be
naill
able to have that opportunity
datblygu'r iaith
either to
presennol
develop
neu i
their
dysgu'r
Welsh language
iaith
skills
Cymraeg os maen
or
nhw
to
wedi
learn
symud i'r
Welsh
ardal.
if they've moved into the area, for example.
Mae hyn yn hanfodol, really,
This is essential, really, as we develop a
darpariaeth
workforce and as we
cadarn
develop
ac
a
eiliad,
firm and
i roi
wide provision.
cyfleoedd
And it
amrywiol
gives
i
various
plant a pobl
opportunities
ifanc
for
a
children
teuluoedd
and
ar
young
draws y
people and
sir.
families across the
Mae hyn
county.
yn grymuso cymunedau
And this empowers
sy'n
communities
cydnabod
then,
y
and that
pwysigrwydd
recognises
gwasanaethau
the
a
importance
chyfleoedd
of
Cymraeg.
services and opportunities through the medium of
Fi'n credu
Welsh.
hyn yn
And I
elfen
think that this
allweddol,
is a
fel
key
Paul yn sôn,
element, as
gyda'r
Paul
peilot
mentioned,
o
with
ran
a pilot
Sir Cyffredin a Sir Ceredigion
between
yn
Caerphilly and
plethu.
Ceredigion. And that,
Dyn ni'n awyddus i roi
we are
tipyn o
really
ffocws
keen
arno
to put quite a
yr
bit of
elfen yma
focus on
trwy'r
this element
peilot o
through
ran
the pilot
asesu'r
in
strategaeth
assessing
a
the
sut mae hwnna'n
strategy
edrych mewn
and how
ymarfer
that looks
a
in
gweld os ydy'r
practice, and
modelau
to
hyn yn
see
gallu
whether these
cael
models
i cael ei
can
ddyblygu'n pellach
be
byr
developed
tymor
further
ar gyfer
in the longer term
a
for
gweithgareddau cyfrwng Cymraeg.
provisions and for Welsh medium
Mae yna
activities.
blaenoriaeth i hyrwyddo
There
opsiynau
is a
Cymraeg yn
priority to
cyntaf
promote
ar draws
Welsh medium provision
yr
first
sefydliad.
across the organisation.
Enghraifft
An
enghraifft syml
example
iawn
of
yw
this very
dechrau
basic
pob sgwrs
example
yn
is
Cymraeg. Mae
starting
hwnna'n
every conversation in Welsh,
hyrwyddo
and
ar
that is
draws
being
y
promoted
sefydliad
across the
i pob un
organisation
o'r staff
for every member of staff.
gwneud yr ymarfer yna
To do
dechrau pob
that, to
sgwrs
start
trwy
every
Cymraeg.
conversation
Mae
through the medium
darpariaeth
of
Cymraeg yn
Welsh.
cael ei
Welsh
chynnwys
medium
yn ein
provision is
cynlluniau
included
busnes
in our business
a
plans
strategaethau
and
corfforaethol.
in our corporate
Mae rhaid i'r holl
strategies, and all of
fod
the
yn ddwyieithog a
materials
threfnu
have to be
gwasanaeth
bilingual, and
cyfieithu
we
ar
have
gyfer
to arrange
cyfarfodydd
translation
cyhoeddus.
interpretation
Felly mae hwnna'n
services for
rhywbeth
public meetings.
fel sir ni wedi rhoi
So as a
mewn
county, that is
hwnna
something
lefel pob gwasanaeth
that
yn
we have
gorfod
ensured that every service has to reach that
hyrwyddo.
level, and they have to
Mae
promote
hefyd
that
yna
level of service.
cynorthwyo partneriaeth
Also,
gwaith agos
we
gyda sefydliadau
work
dysgu
in
sy'n
partnership
newid yr waith,
with other
addysg bellach
work-based
ac addysg
learning,
uwch wrth ddarparu
things like
dysgu
higher
a chryderu
education
i
and
staff a
further
pobl ifanc,
education to accredit some
naill
of the
trwy
learning,
cyfrwng Cymraeg
either Welsh
neu
medium,
cyfleoedd
or there
ddwyieithog
are
sy'n
opportunities in
positif iawn a
bilingual
rhoi'r
opportunities
opsiwn
as well, which
i
is really positive, and it
gweithwyr
gives
cael
workers
cael opsiwn
opportunities
o wneud
to
naill
get that opportunity of
cwrs trwyddo naill opsiwn
following
yna.
a course.
Dyn ni'n teimlo really fel
We feel
gwasanaeth
really, as a
mae hyn yn
service,
cynyddu dull
that this
diwylliannol
increases professional standards, and it promotes learners to practice and to improve their confidence through those opportunities. So I'll now hand over to Non and Lowri with the second point on the slide. Okay, so I'll come in here first then, Lowri. So as somebody who works in Ceredigion County Council, as Gethin has mentioned, there are processes, internal processes that promote the use of the Welsh language. But where Cered, the Welsh Language Initiative in Ceredigion, is fortunate, different to the majority of other mentor iaith in Wales, is that the mentor is actually part of Ceredigion County Council. Therefore, it facilitates that discussion between the youth service and the mentor iaith. But the emphasis for us as mentor is on helping the youth service to provide Welsh medium services. And in doing so, we have a youth worker who works with schools, who works with a college, and also who works with the youth service in order to plan and provide sessions that promote the use of the Welsh language and to promote awareness of Welsh culture. So things that have worked for us in the past are things like beatboxing sessions. That's been really successful because it shows the value of having Welsh medium skills for young people. Because one of the challenges I think that everybody notes, even in areas, Welsh-speaking area like Ceredigion, is young people's unwillingness to use the Welsh language. They don't see the Welsh language as being cool to do. And that is a challenge, I think, that a lot of organisations are facing. Beatboxing is really successful because it shows how the Welsh language can be used across the world, really. Ed Holden has made a career out of using the Welsh language in music, and showing that to young people has been really successful. And we've been able to work with the youth service to hold these sessions with different clubs. And we've been working with young people to show them what the potential is in using the Welsh language. Other services and other sessions have been looking at music, various music, things like composing songs. And one of the other things that's worked really well as well is creating a radio programme. So we've worked with Radio Aber recently, working with our young people and encouraging them to use technology and so on to create a radio programme. And very often that radio programme can include bilingual elements, but it is mainly through the medium of Welsh. So these are different methods, fun ways, but on the whole, we work with the youth service. And these opportunities, I know, are different across Wales, but I'm sure that Lowri will move on now to show how Caerphilly and Mentor Iaith Caerphilly work in different ways. But in Ceredigion, the relationship, that close relationship with the youth service does ensure Welsh medium provision. Thank you, Non. Yes, I'll just add a little bit with regards to the Mentor Iaith in Caerphilly and also a voluntary organisation and forums that are available to collaborate with. But similar to Non's position as well, Mentor in Caerphilly has been working really closely with the youth service in Cyngor Caerphilly Council and the Mae'r since the Mentor started about 20 years ago. And being able to jointly fund an officer in the county has been a really effective way of planning youth work in collaboration, so that as organisations we don't work in silos. But what also enriches that work are the opportunities to feed in to the county's education plan that is updated across Wales on a local level at the moment, and the opportunities to use the Welsh language outside of education, that is a key part of those plans by now. So as organisations in the communities who provide opportunities for young people to use the Welsh language socially, you know, or to have qualifications, we have a really valuable contribution then to feed into that plan and to make sure that those opportunities are available as young people and children leave school at the end of the day, and that those opportunities are available during school holidays as well. We also have a language forum in Caerphilly, and the Mentor coordinates that, and there's representation, a vast representation on that forum, including organisations who work through the medium of Welsh, like the Mae'r, Cymraeg i blant, and these are also opportunities for, there are opportunities for secondary schools, primary schools, further education, colleges, papurau bro, and different departments of the council to feed into any work that develops opportunities to use the Welsh language locally. So again, that is a really important forum. Also, to go with those education plans, every local authority also at the moment are developing their Welsh promotion strategies for the next 5 years. And these are opportunities to ensure that Welsh medium provision for young people is part of that strategy, and that our work and that all of our work feeds into that, and that the planning is well, that there's no duplication of work, and that everybody is fully aware of each other's work. So I think certainly we see today, with regards to recruiting staff to work with young people who want to speak in Welsh, that has been noted today. But in reading the comments in the chat, and also when thinking about our experiences, partnerships are key. And in working in an area where the majority of young people come from non-Welsh speaking homes, those opportunities outside of school are so important, so that young people can see that using Welsh is something that is natural, something that will help them along in a career, and that is a key skill as well, and that they see a value, that they value that skill. So we've got a lot of work to do with regards to that, and it's really useful to hear other people's experiences here this morning. But certainly there are partnerships, there are opportunities to overcome those challenges as well. I will now pass over to Paul and Angharad, who will talk a bit more about their experiences as well. Thank you. Paul, would you like to go first?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear that. Would you mind repeating the question? Thank you.
Would you like to go first, Paul?
With which aspect?
With the partnership.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I was getting a bit of crossover there. Certainly in Caerphilly, we've been very fortunate in that our Welsh language partnership has been in place for, I think it's around 18 years now. We've been doing this. It's hugely effective for us and a real game changer for Caerphilly Youth Service. And it's a bit of a game of two halves for us. On the one hand, we are able to provide a dedicated Welsh medium provision in the shape of a youth club, which is very important. And young people come from all over the county to attend the youth club. And because our partnership contributes financially to the recruitment of a Welsh medium youth worker, we have someone who has a specific role and can work in that youth club. But we also have other staff that we train up and qualify through the medium of Welsh to work in that club environment. But the partnership is more than that, because the partnership also feeds into the more general offer that we have across the youth service, and of course in other areas too, like school sites. And at the moment, that partnership is developing under the auspices of the current Welsh medium youth work pilot. And we are hoping to look at the good practice that we've been delivering over the last 18 years and expand that to, for example, recruit other youth workers. Now, going back to the challenges that we were acknowledging there, that people were saying that they had, the recruitment of Welsh medium youth workers is often perceived as a challenge. I can see by the chat that yes, that is experienced by some agencies. In Cyffredin, what we've done is to ask people in a different way about whether or not they speak any Welsh, and we've had a lot more responses back. And what we are doing is planning to train those people to increase their confidence in using Welsh. And I noticed that the word confidence has come up several times in the chat today. Not everyone feels they can be confident contributing to Welsh language youth work. We think actually there's more capacity out there than we realise. All depends on how you ask the question. So what started as a fantastic existing collaboration with both Mae'r Eraill and Gwaith Cymru is now evolving and growing into something we think that's going to be more significant. It's causing us to ask some questions about our practice and how we ask questions like, for example, do you speak Welsh? Because we suspect we've probably been asking that question the wrong way before. And actually looking more at the data and how many young people actually speak Welsh out there by tapping into the structures contained within Gwaith Cymru and Mae'r Eraill. But also that has prompted us to look further afield to some of the larger structures within the local authority, including the Welsh Language Department and those that look at demography. And we are hoping that after the pilot, we will be expanding our offer significantly. Now, this couldn't have happened without a collaboration being in place. Now, I can see from the chat that collaboration exists elsewhere in Wales. Of course, we already know that. But collaboration can exist in many shapes or forms, and collaboration will come out as a recommendation, we think, at the end of this piece of work. Before we move on, I just want to go back to some other very, very interesting chat that's been put in our chat function to do with the perception that young people don't want to speak Welsh outside schools, and some very, very intriguing comments, very poignant comments by both Mae'r and Jamie, talking there about, I'll just pick them at random, talking about the importance of having Welsh-speaking role models. It might be in the media, but we need Welsh-speaking youth workers too. So, you know, there is a proven case having more Welsh-speaking youth workers. We want Welsh language to be cool. Jamie's saying that actually in a Welsh medium youth work context, that those conversations in Welsh open up areas that you wouldn't otherwise be able to explore. So a real tick for Welsh medium youth work there. And also there's an appeal there for getting a fine balance between encouragement and a requirement. We want to get it right. We don't want people to feel browbeaten into speaking Welsh. We want to get the position right. So all these elements will be contained in the report that will follow the conference today. So thank you very much for those. So without further ado, on to the next slide, please. So we are into any questions territory. And we are going to just give a minute or two to that. People can pop questions into the chat about either anything that's come up during the course of the workshop or any other questions, maybe things that haven't been covered. And the reason for putting the questions in the chat is that they will be recorded. And if we don't have the answers now, we will be providing the answers afterwards. So there is an offer there. And an interesting comment from V there. Lots of young people attending the Welsh Medium Comp are actually from English-speaking families. So that shows the power and potential of the Welsh Medium offer. And Gareth has chipped in there regarding the language capacity in terms of Welsh. That it is untapped, and he's referencing the 2018 report on the value of youth work training there, which I would encourage everyone to go and have a look at, which can be downloaded from the Estyn website. And confidence again is a key issue. As part of the partnership, for example, in Cyffredin, we will be offering Welsh confidence classes to our workers who we think will be working in our Welsh medium provision. And Eleri has come in right at the end to say hello. So Eleri, thank you for making it. Sorry you couldn't get access to the chat before. Lovely to have Cardiff Youth Service represented today. So please carry on putting things in the chat. But the conversation doesn't begin and end here in the workshop. As we are now building up to the end of the workshop in 2 minutes' time, we will say that any of the chat here will be recorded, will be fed back into the Welsh Language Strategy Participation Group. So if anybody wants to have any comment, they want that seam of conversation to carry on a national level, please put comment in the chat before we finish today.
Yeah, I think we're here till 12:45, aren't we? So we've got a few more minutes.
We've got a few more minutes. So we do have time for for those questions, and also to raise any more issues that we think should be taken forward at a national level. So we're going to open up the chat now. So we're looking for questions now that this group can discuss, or any other wider questions that we think the Strategic Participation Group for Welsh Language could or should be taking forward. And here we go. So V, thank you for that. Has there been a national study survey to see if those attending Welsh medium schools want to socialise or attend youth provisions through the medium of Welsh also? Well, I can tell you that's part of the pilot work going on now. That question is being asked, but that's not a national survey. I'm going to open up the question to the other panel members or anyone else who's participating today. Do we know of any national surveys that ask this specific question?
No, I'm not aware of anything. Don't know, Lori, if you are or Gethin or none. That's been a national survey about this, really. I think it's important to emphasise siarad Cymraeg. Bwysig,
I think it's important, that we look at this, but also that the provision is there, and to make the young people realise that there's Welsh medium provision for them, and I think that's really important. I don't think that they always think that there may be Welsh medium provision for them in their community because maybe they come from a non-Welsh speaking home, but I think it's important to make young people and children realise that if they do attend Welsh medium education, that there's Welsh medium provision for them in the community as well as being in the school. Yes, I would agree with that, Angharad. And also, there is a language use survey. Perhaps Non could correct me here. I think that it's every 2 years rather than on an annual basis, the language use survey. And that shows a bit of information about young people's language choices and when they use Welsh. We have seen an increase in Welsh language use, but certainly this point goes back to what Angharad has described in a way, which is to many young people, the provision isn't available easily and not locally, so it is a difficult choice sometimes to go to Welsh medium provision because of travel implications, cost implications, and so on. So it's really important that those conditions are there to support them to use their Welsh language. And today's discussion about how can we overcome those challenges will be key in order to improve the situation for lots of young people in Wales.
Thank you, Lori. So V, thank you for that question. You've posed a very interesting question there in terms of wider research there. So what we can now tell you is that question will be elevated to the appropriate participation group, the Welsh Language Group, SPG that is, under the auspices of the Interim Youth Work Board. So thank you for posing that. We're not aware of any existing survey of this type, though we think similar things may be done at a local level. So V, very useful question. We can guarantee that one will go forward. So we have some very other useful comments here. Very poignant comment from Emma here, who says, I think if there were more free drop-in Welsh language classes in the area, there would be a bigger uptake. There are a few in RCT, but most of them are not free. So access to learning Welsh could be an issue there, and I guess we're also talking for younger people. If they could drop in and learn Welsh too, that should be encouraged. Maybe there is a role for the youth work services to do that. And I guess that there is also a question there about the existing prevalence of services for young people in the medium of Welsh, because it may be that this narrative that young people don't want to speak Welsh after school is actually self-fulfilling prophecy, because there is no other opportunity to speak Welsh after school at the moment. So some interesting questions there. And we also have an interesting question posed by Anne. Is there an opportunity to look at marketing the profession to Welsh-speaking young people? How do we find out about youth work careers? And the point is being made here that at the moment they may be going elsewhere. We may be losing them from youth work into other professions. And there's a reference here to an EAR scheme a few years back to increase the opportunity to increase Welsh speaking in the youth work workforce. And Harad, can you tell us a bit about that? You're on mute there, Anhad.
Sorry, someone had to do it. Mae'r urdd wedi yn y gorffennol.
The Urdd in the past have had, well, we've got an apprenticeship department at the moment who are focusing on sport, but a few years ago we did have 36 members who are youth work apprentices, and this is something that we're looking at as an organisation, and we hope to be able to provide and expand on this over the next few years. But yes, at the moment we're trying to recruit leaders for that.
And we are rushing towards a conclusion now. We're almost at the 1:45 end, but a few good points here. I'll just say to end, we're talking about recruitment there, the importance of growing your own Welsh language youth workers. Thank you very much for that, Larry. Gareth there reminding us of the overarching policy to do with encouragement, but also we need to get a million Welsh language speakers in the country. Marketing and advertising, again, a point well made there. And Gareth makes reference to the free access to Welsh for adult classes in the future. Well, I didn't know that, so I've learned something today. So on that note, we have reached the end of the line for today's workshop. So it's a very big thank you to all the facilitators who have prepared and delivered today, and all of our technical support in the background. And of course, a big thank you to all of those who have managed to participate today. Just to reiterate, all the comments today will be recorded and we will pass it on to the relevant participation group, SPG. So without further ado, can I say thank you very much. Hope to see you all again soon.